The 2022 Indianapolis Colts have been a crazy story of firing, hiring, ownership meddling, and just overall bad football. Well, I'm here to break it down to you as to why the Indianapolis Colts have struggled and what they need to do in the future to fix it and get back on track for contending for the AFC South Championship and an AFC Championship as well. To start out, we need to talk about the Colts' biggest issue, and that's been their passing attack. They've been sacked 49 times, which is third worst in the NFL, only behind the Rams and Broncos, both tied at 51. They've given up the most sack yardage with 359 yards lost due to sacks, which is the worst, and they've had 14 touchdowns thrown to 14 interceptions. The bright side is they're in the upper half of the league completion percentage. The downside is they've thrown the ball a lot. They rank in the upper half of the league in balls thrown. Passing yards, they're not the worst, but they're not the best. They're dead even in the middle practically. This team has struggled throwing the ball, and they've struggled protecting their quarterback. The offense was projected to be much better, though, with Jonathan Taylor, who has had issues staying healthy. The Colts currently have 1,473 rushing yards. You expect a lot more, and they only have 7 rushing touchdowns, which is third worst overall, second tied in the league. They have not been able to run the ball successfully for touchdowns. They have had a total of 7 fumbles rushing. That's not including Matt Ryan's fumbles, who have been way worse. The Colts have had issues holding the football, and they've had issues putting drives together for long sustains. Their best game of the year was the first half against the Minnesota Vikings, which they then blew in the second half. This team has a lot of issues, and there's a lot to go forward that we need to fix here. Now, let's talk about the whole thing with Frank Reich. Do I think Frank Reich is a bad head coach? No, I do not. Do I think Frank Reich was put in a bad spot by ownership and some poor drafting in recent years? Yes. And I know what you're going to say. Chris Ballard is not a poor drafter. He is not. When I mean poor drafting, I mean poor selection of positions. This team has lost 2 offensive tackles in the past couple years that they never replaced. They then put all their eggs in one basket in Carson Wentz, who struggled, and then they traded to the Washington Football Team, or Commanders. Can't remember if they were named at that point or not, but they traded him away to Washington. Now, they bring in Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan I'm a big fan of him. He should probably have a Super Bowl ring if it wasn't for questionable decision-making in the Super Bowl by the coaching staff, but he's older. He's not what he once was, and this offense line is getting him killed. Matt Ryan may not look this bad if he had a good O-line in front of him. But when you're old and your O-line sucks, those inabilities are going to be shown more and more. He doesn't have the arm strength he once did. He didn't have, the body movement he once did. Matt Ryan was never a mobile guy, but he at least had better pocket awareness. He had better pocket movement. That's gone, and we see that now with the fumbles. You look at Frank Reich, he was put in a tough spot. I think Frank Reich's a very good coach. I think he's a very good offensive genius. He was put in a rough spot with draft decisions that were mostly made to help the defense, which has been phenomenal, really, this year. It's just been overshadowed with how bad their offense has been. The Colts need to address the offensive line. I know a lot of talk is going to be about a quarterback position in the draft, which I'm going to get into in a bit. But this whole upcoming offseason needs to be addressing the offensive line, because no matter who you have back there, you need to protect. Jonathan Taylor is going to have a much shorter career, as we're seeing now with the injuries this year, if the offense line is not better. He's going to be taking more abuse, and abuse you cannot afford to have for your best player on the team. Now let's talk about the biggest story of the Colts season, hiring Jeff Saturday. Now, a lot of people hated this move when it was announced. A lot of media criticized it. A lot of people, former players, criticized as well. Notably Joe Thomas and former head coach Bill Cowher. Now, I didn't hate this. I saw it work well with the Montreal Canadiens hiring Martin St. Louis for them, and he's done a phenomenal job as their head coach in this past year, working with players, resetting the organization culture. So I didn't have an issue with Jeff Saturday being brought in to fix this. Now that being said, they haven't won many games. Since he's been hired, they won 1 game. They've only lost 1 game by more than 1 possession against the Dallas Cowboys, who blew them out in the 4th quarter. It was a very close game up to that point. They lost to the Eagles by 1 point. They lost the Steelers by 7 points. They got destroyed by the Cowboys in the 4th quarter, and they lost to the Vikings in overtime by 3 points. You can argue they should have held on against the Vikings, but I also argue they should never have had that big of a lead against the Vikings in the first place. Jeff Saturday, even though they haven't won, it hasn't been bad. Do I think you bring him back as the head coach next year? No. I think his job is just to come in here and reset the organization. If you want to bring him on as a coach next year, hey, I'm all for that. Have him work on the offensive line, maybe just have him work as an assistant coach. Or if he wants to go into front office, work with Chris Ballard, that's perfectly fine as well. Jeff Saturday has not done a bad job, nor has he done a great job. He's just right in the middle of, yeah, he's there. Now I want to talk about who I think they should bring in as their next head coach, who I think they should kind of use to build their team around. I think it's Ben Johnson, the offense coordinator of the Detroit Lions. Now, D'Amico Ryans is my number one head coaching candidate, but I don't think him going to Indianapolis is the right move. Gus Bradley has done a very, very good job with that defense. I don't think you move off Gus Bradley. I think you bring in someone who works the offensive staff, who works with probably your next franchise quarterback that you'll draft in the next couple years, who understands that line play is needed. This dude worked up from a tight ends coach to an offensive assistant, back to a tight ends coach, assistant wide receiver coach, offense quality control coach, tight end coach, and now offense coordinator at the Lions. Now, he had many different stops. He first started in Boston College, went to Miami in 2012, then went to Detroit in 2019. Ben Johnson has kind of revitalized the career of Jared Goff. Jared Goff did not have a great year under Anthony Lynn, but he was replacing Anthony Lynn in the 2022 season. Since then, the Lions have had a much better attack. Now, you can say a lot of that is determined off Amon-Ra St. Brown, which, yes, that's very fair. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a game changer at the wide receiver position. You see that when you watch the Lions play. I also argue that Ben Johnson didn't have his healthy players. He had backups and was working decently with them. So they got back. They've won 6 out of the last 7, and he's called games masterfully down the stretch. The Colts don't need a defensive guy. Like I said, Gus Bradley works very well at the defense. They need someone to just reset the offense. I do think Frank Reich was a good offensive coach, but he clearly lost the luster in Indianapolis. Whether it was by Ballard, Irsay, by somebody there, they didn't believe in his vision anymore. You need to bring Brent Johnson in, have him work with, hopefully, an offensive line pick in the first round, not a quarterback. Have them work with that, build that up in the future. Draft your next quarterback to be in the line of succession from Unitas, Manning, Luck, and then whoever is the next guy. Now I want to talk about the 2023 NFL Draft. The Colts clearly need to reset some stuff on offense, and I know a lot of people want to go quarterback. I don't believe that's the right move. I think the only quarterback that's going to be drafted in the first round that's going to be a day one impact player is going to be Bryce Young. I think everyone else has stuff they need to work out of their game. CJ Stroud holds on the ball too long. Anthony Richardson is nowhere near consistent enough to be a franchise quarterback out of the gate. And Will Levis, let's just say, I'm not a fan of his game. You look at the Colts, they're not going to be in the position to draft Bryce Young. Bryce Young's going to be a Houston Texan unless they get an offer of all offers to fall back and just draft for many years of having like a first round pick for the next 5 years too. Now, with the Colts, they need to look at the offensive line. My favorite offense tackle is Paris Johnson at Ohio State. I think he's a very good tackle. I think he's going to be a day one impact starter. The other guy I like is Peter Skornowski, the offensive lineman from Northwestern. Now, why do I not have him as my highest rate tackle? I think he's a guard in the future. So you're going to ask me who am I going to value here more? It's going to be Paris Johnson. The Colts have struggled with left tackle since Anthony Costanzo was retired. They need a new left tackle, and no matter who you put back there, no matter what quarterback it is, rookie, veteran, young up-and-comer, you need to protect him. And that's a big thing that the Colts need to do, and they need the draft offense line to work in the future. Well, now time for my overall thoughts on the Colts. They're going to be in a rough spot for a couple years. They clearly don't have the best quarterback in the division with Trevor Lawrence, and they're probably not going to have the second best quarterback in the division next year with the Texans drafting Bryce Young. Ryan Tannehill, we don't know about because of injuries. He may fall off drastically, or he may bounce back and be a good to average quarterback. You're looking at fourth best quarterback in the division, with an offense line that's not good yet, with issues all across the board practically on offense. The only spot I feel certain about is their running back position. I like two receivers they have in Pittman and Pierce, but they are just two guys. They need a lot more. The Colts are going to find themselves in the basement for, I want to say, 2 years. Now, I think the Texans are going to be down there with them because no matter how good Bryce Young is, there's a lot of overhaul that team needs. But I don't think they're going to be contending with the Jaguars. I don't even think they're going to be contending with the Titans, even if Tannehill struggles when he comes back, just due to how well that team is coached. They need to go in the direction of hiring an offense guy that can work with the offense and rebuild it. Offense line is the biggest issue on this team in the offseason. If you can address offense tackle before the draft, be my guest, go draft your next guy. But if you can't, you need to focus on your offense line first and foremost. Peyton Manning would not have been the great quarterback if his offense lines were that bad. Andrew Luck was a phenomenal quarterback, maybe one of the best I've ever seen in my lifetime. His career was cut short due to bad offense line play. The Colts need to fix the offense line. It needs to be their number one priority in the 2023 offseason. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like it, hit the like button. If you disagree, hit that dislike button. I don't mind. But go down in the comment section and tell me what you disagree with so I understand. And we can go back and forth a bit. But come back in the next couple days. I'm going to be dropping a New York Jets video on what direction I think they're going to go, what quarterback they need to use in the future, what I think about Robert Saleh as a head coach, and just overall the direction of the Jets' future. And the following week, there's going to be a Trevor Lawrence video dropping, so stay tuned.